And welcome to the Foundry Files. I'm Wee-Wee, and I think that's over there, isn't it? No, it's over there.
I'm over here.
Whichever direction he's in.
Wee-Wee, I'm over here, hello!
He's also related to Mugato, which also happens to be similar to a chimpanzee, so remember that from now on, will you?
Hey, Mugatos are the coolest alien to ever appear in Star Trek, so shut up.
And they also happen to be a target in Tholian invasion.
Jerk! Racist! Anyway, so what are we doing this week, Wee-Wee? Are we talking about lockboxes, maybe?
No, I will kill you for that. Anyway, we got a few patch notes from Trevor, which will be imported to Holodeck in the next few days, hopefully. We've got a new voting for Foundry Challenge 6. A bit of a discussion on the Romulans, which we'll get into later.
What?
We've also got a costume creating magic, which we'll also get into later. That's covered in news. We've got a bit of quick tips, which we are going to gameplay this week. And we've got a review for this week, Grazorak City.
Ooh, that's an old one. I've heard about this one for a while, so we finally checked it out and reviewed it. We'll let you know what we thought. But
I think it was a winner of Foundry Challenge 2, if I recall, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was winner of one of the Foundry Challenges, and it was spotlighted, so... Oh, sorry guys, we took off last week because real-life stuff got in the way. So, sorry for those of you who didn't actually know, but we're back now. Hey, it was your fault. Don't you be pointing at me over there. It was your fault. It's him on...
I have no idea which direction you went, so I can't know. It's like you're one of those directions.
It's stuff. Why don't we go cry about it? Anyway, let's move right on into our news. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum! Was that the McDonald's theme? I'm pretty sure that was just me putting a spin on the McDonald's theme right there. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. Yep.
Do that again. And on to the news. Now, triple patch notes. We've got a few points here. Just some basic points to start off with. It's once again possible to select animation for NPCs on space maps.
Okay.
That's always a good thing. Right? That's always a good thing.
What does that mean, though? I'm confused. Haven't we...
warp out animations, I think, for like ships, for example. Like you could
does
set
it still loop?
For example, to warp out or warp in or something. I think that might have been broken. I don't know.
But yeah, but the problem was when you selected it, it would loop. So does this mean it's not going to loop anymore, or what? Because if it still loops, that's
it says it is once again possible. So I'm assuming it was a fix for a bug that affected it. So well, either way, it's fixed.
I didn't know about that.
We actually have a few new detail objects. They are original series stuff. To go
all of it.
Range, which will actually be highly beneficial Spectres Part 6, which of course we both rated very highly. So a whole bunch there. What else have we got in those patch notes? Patch notes.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite. The transporter room was added to the Foundry. It's awesome.
It's
I love it.
Time, I have to say.
I was on the Foundry Roundtable. That's another Foundry show out there, and we heavily discussed some of this stuff because somebody asked, where on the ship can you go? Like if you want to take a player to your ship, and I think we even discussed this a bit. The places you should probably avoid is like the bridge because we can't send a player to your bridge and stuff like that. And one of the rooms we brought up was the transporter room because so far we haven't been able to do that in the Foundry. You've had to use like a star base and block off the rest of the star base or something like that. So having now the transporter room in the Foundry is great because everybody's had to build their own transporter room, but now we've got the standard one that supposedly everybody has. So that's a great thing to see here. You can use it on indoor and outdoor maps. So
there is one thing I'd like to bring up with that is I think that might be a generic Federation one, isn't it? With the standard glowy lights, the yellow lights, and everything.
Yeah.
Are we going to see any more variety in that for generic ships, for Klingon ships, for Romulan ships?
Yeah, I hope
that kind
we
of stuff?
do. I'm going to assume that this is definitely the Fed one, and hopefully definitely the Cleon one, because there is a KDF transporter, right? I mean, of course, it's still the Fed one, but red. Come on, guys, make a new KDF transporter. They had them in the shows. They weren't just copies. I'm pretty sure they weren't just copies.
Anyway.
And then there was the icon for contacts on cryptic maps will no longer display as 3 times per contact. I don't know what that means, but I guess they displayed multiple times. But that's a fix,
that's
so
weird.
it's really weirded there, so I don't know what they're trying to pass along there. But hey, that was the Tribble patch notes. This stuff will probably be coming to holodeck pretty soon, if not already. I don't think it's on yet, but probably by the time the show's coming out, they'll patch it Monday, Tuesday morning. But what else do we got, Wee Wee?
Well, that's Triple Patch Notes over and done with. We have voting for Foundry Challenge number 6.
The Tholian one. Yeah, that's the Tholian challenge that was going on. So people have been creating their missions, and now they've all been submitted, so it's time to go play and vote on them. So a few of the people I was on with on the roundtable this week had 2 of them were submitting missions, and they sounded pretty cool. And of course, I did throw in the question, how hard was it to author a mission for Tholians when all you could do was shoot at them? And they said they worked around it a little bit. The one I heard, it wasn't primarily focused on the Tholians. Like, it was the Tholians were there, but there were a bunch of other ones in there. So I guess that was his kind of workaround. Because, of course, it's really hard to tell a story when all you can do is shoot the Tholians. I mean, I could see it being done, but I think there's like 16 missions in this challenge being submitted. You got to have some variety in there where you're not just, oh, we're only shooting the Tholians and stuff's going on. So I'm interested to see which, because I want to definitely play the contest winner for this, because we have not played a Tholian mission to date, and I love the Tholians. I've said it in the past. I can't wait till they add more Tholian stories and stuff like that. But speaking of like factions and stuff, okay, we weren't speaking of factions, but we're talking about the Tholians. But moving on, that was a terrible transition, me.
Yes, it was.
Anyway, Romulan Faction, as it's been called. There's been a lot of stuff with this thing we haven't talked about on the show because that's been really Foundry related, but it's going to be a huge gameplay changer that is definitely going to affect the Foundry in the future, and that is March Beneath the Raptor's Wings, I believe it is. This is the supposed name for, I guess, their big whatever patch. They said it's not a season, so, but in May, this is going to be their big patch. What is in it? We don't know. They're keeping it so under wraps. I mean, like, even talking with Mav before the interview when he was taking questions, he did an interview with Daniel Stahl. Immediately they said, you cannot ask us questions about this patch. We're not talking about it. They're keeping this so under wraps, and all we know is on their one page, they're showing a Romulan logo, and of course the name hints at Romulans. And now they've got a countdown clock that's pissing me off. They're taunting me. I looked at it, I was like, don't taunt me. I even like tweeted out, please stop. I need a time machine to go see what's going on now.
I calculated that I think it was March the 20th at 2 p.m. PST, if I recall, will be the date that will be the exact time that countdown will finish.
And nobody knows what it's for either. I think it's an announcement.
So on Wednesday, March the 20th, look for something Romulan. It's going to be announced. I'm suspecting we'll have a couple more hints or a few teasers that will really bug us over the next couple of weeks, but at that point we will know for sure whether this is a faction or a feature episode series, and I'm leaning strongly towards a faction.
I am too.
Based on the fact, partly because I think it was Gecko said back in January, they've designed 20 new ships which they can't talk about. 20 ships.
It makes you think, because that's how many. I don't know how many ships were in originally, but I don't know if that's 20 ships, like with variants included in that number, or they're just saying these are the classes of ships and there'll be a few variants, or maybe Romulans just won't have variants. We don't know.
I think it was on Memory Alpha. I looked at it, and a couple of other websites as well. The Romulans only have like 8 or 10 ships. It's more than the Klingons, but they have like 8 or 10, including the Romulan D7. So I'm thinking, well, if they include all of that, including like the holographic drone, the alternate scouts, of course, there's the Derek, Scimitar, and Valdo, and all that kind of stuff. There'll be a few there, but that means there would also have to be that's less than half of them. That means they have to make up their own ships as well.
Yeah, which I wouldn't mind.
I'm really curious. I'm actually more curious of what they're going to make up for those Romulan ships. And of course, this is all speculation about.
Yeah, because we still don't know. I mean, some people are still on their goat I guess that's the phrase. I don't know, but they're still saying that this could be a massive Romulan story update for both the Feds and Cleons. Of course, we know it's for the Feds and it's poorly copied for the Cleons. Oh, did I say that? Oops, my bad. Sorry, wee. But it's okay. Moving on. Anyway, so is it going to be a massive feature episode update or something like that? I'm leaning towards no. I really do think all this plugging they're doing is for something bigger than that. Now, I could still see it being something massive story update, but with all this plugging going on, it's hard to deny the fact that this could be the Romulan faction coming up. And I'm going to say, I think this is hints at the Romulan faction. I do think it's going to come in May. To what quality? I'm not sure. Is it going to be what we expect from a new faction, or is it going to be on par with the KDF?
That's probably the biggest question of the lot. If it's a Romulan faction, what is it going to be like? Is it going to be like the Klingons are now, or is it going to be like the Klingons were, or is it going to be a new one? So it's going to be up to par with the Federation eventually. That's the biggest question everybody has in their mind, and it's exactly the reason people wanted the KDF finish first. So then they would have essentially the faith in Cryptic to actually do this sort of stuff. People are questioning a massive amount to see if they're capable of that. And I'm very curious myself as well.
The two things I think they need to nail down with the Romulan faction when that comes in is it needs to start at level cap, or not at level cap, at the beginning, level 1. You need to be able to start, yeah, that's bad. Complete opposite of what I meant. You need to be able to start at level 1. That was the problem the KDF faced, because you'd get so invested into your Fed by the time you unlocked KDF, was you didn't have a reason to really go and switch over because you're already invested to your Fed. So you're like, oh, why do I want to go play my Cleon? I'm already invested into my Fed. Plus, the problem I found when I first started playing my KDF way back at launch was KDF was only a PvP faction. One, I wasn't into PvP. Yeah. Two, PvP was terrible, and it still is terrible in this game. Meaning, at that time, that was all the Cleons could do, so that just directly reflected on the Cleon faction. It wasn't until later on they started adding in the story and stuff.
Now, not to delve too deep in the history of Klingons, but speaking as a player who literally leveled his Klingon from February 2010 all the way to, I think it was November 2010, 90% of what I did was PvP. The rest was stuff that, like the Breen dailies I actually did as well, but that kind of thing concerns people. I don't think they'll go that route again.
I don't think they're going to make that mistake.
It's not a good idea at all. It's a terrible idea. So what I'm thinking they're going to do is, if they don't have enough missions to fill out the 50 gap, which I actually personally don't think they will do when it comes out, if it comes out, I think they're going to do a bit like the Klingons, but something different. So, for example, if they only have like 15 missions, 10 missions, it'll start at level 35, level 40, and then it'll just keep working back as they've always supposedly intended to do with the Klingons. So, if it's like that, and then I'm actually more curious of what their endgame content is going to be about.
Yeah, because the key here is different. They need to have a different feel, because the problem with the Cleons, when they were being advertised for quite a bit, when they were starting to add in story, was copies of the Fed missions. And as being a high Fed player and invested into my Fed, there was nothing really to draw me over to the Cleon faction when they were saying, we're just going to be copying the stories that you enjoyed on the Fed side over there. I wanted a complete new experience, because if you look at Star Trek, some of the best Star Trek episodes were told from the Cleon perspective. Like those episodes where it was like in Deep Space Nine, they were on the bird of prey for the whole episode. Those were great stories because they were completely different from the storytelling we were used to on the Fed ships and stuff like that. And that's what I hoped from the Cleon faction, but we never really got that. I hope we're going to get that with the Romulan faction here, because if they nail down the Romulan feel to the faction with enough story content and different things to do over there, it's going to be a pretty cool launch. And the question here is, how is the Romulan faction being added, if it is, going to affect the Foundry? Because if you think about it, they add in the Foundry an option to create Romulan missions. Boom. Explosion there, I think, in Foundry creation, because that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I think the Foundry is going to be a pivotal part for Romulan early stages, at least.
Yes, definitely.
Think about it. Half of the feature episodes, if not most of them, if not actually all of them, won't be fitting for the Romulans. I mean, second wave, there was no Romulan ambassador. The Brain, there's no reason for the Romulans to go there. The Romulan arc itself, that's Romulan. Why would you go against yourself?
The only way I could see them working on that
is over in the neutral zone. So I expect none of the feature episodes to be ported over the Romulans, which would mean that Foundry stuff would be a pivotal point for the Romulans, like I said in the early stages, because of that. I think we should try and create a few good enough Romulan missions to try and get up there in try and get up in the actual mission stories.
Yeah, like in the spotlight area. But yeah, hearing that, because I did hear, I was reading a poster, it was like, they probably already got 20 missions in the bag if they fit them in for the featured episode series, and they just have to make like 30 or something to fill up the 50 level. So you do like one mission per level or something like that, because it's already working like that on the Fed side. But yeah, you bring up a good point. The only one I really can see them trying to throw the Romulans into is the Deferi in a way, because I feel like that worked for the Cleons, but again, that's going to be hard, and especially nearly impossible for the Romulan featured episode series. The only way they're going to be able to do that is because we already know there's multiple factions of Romulans out there, and they're all fighting each other. That's the only way they're going to be able to work this in, and that's going to be tough still, because we don't even know if they make a Romulan faction, which side you're going to be on. Are you going to be like Detan's Romulans or the Tal Shiar Romulans? What? We don't know.
Yeah, and actually I think in the timeline story, New Romulus is actually set after the events of the feature episode series.
Yeah.
So it really wouldn't make any sense anyway.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see what this leads to, and we'll have to just see. Costume creator magic. What are we talking about here? So recently I just learned about this when listening to podcast UGC this week, and apparently there's like some weird bug. I was on the go when listening to this, so I heard about half of it, but from what I gathered, there is some bug, quotes, I don't know if it's a bug, and the devs do know about it, but they haven't been super worried about fixing it. But when you go into the costume creator, if you start playing around with the certain features and stuff and choosing certain options, more become unlocked that usually you wouldn't be able to. So Haverha has his character Helno, who we all know is a Rigelian, and big in Foundry missions.
And he's a Doff.
Yeah, and as a Doff, huge, major mascot of the Foundry. He managed to make it that he could unlock the Orion bikini outfit on Helno, which we know is, you can't do that usually because it's a Rigelian. You don't get the Orion outfit because they're on the Fed side, not the Orion or the Cleon side. But he managed to unlock it through playing, like, I think he had to set like smooth nose face, and then he got some unlocks where he eventually found that. So you had to kind of play around, from what I'm gathering, to get these cool unlocks where you're able to put costumes on other people. I heard like somebody was able to throw in a Starfleet costume onto a Gorn and stuff like that. And that opens up the possibility for creating a lot of cool NPCs. And it's not perfect, like, you can't really throw in, I guess, Dominion outfits on Feds guys and stuff like that, or make custom Dominion guys or Romulan guys, but still, this is kind of a boost up in the character because it's been extremely limited lately. So if you're curious about how this costume creator bug works, go listen to the last episode of Podcast UGC, episode 101. Jeez, they've been around for quite a while to hit 101. But that's all the news we got for this week. Let's get into quick tips and then our review of Grazorak City. Alright, I don't want to save the video.
And on to quick tips this week. We finished the technical section, we finished the story section, now to the all-important gameplay. And don't let Murph do this because he sucks so much at gameplay. Anyway, we'll be covering space and ground gameplay for this week. Mix of both because they essentially apply to the same thing overall. So basically, mixing up different non-combat objectives for interesting non-combat gameplay in this mission is a good idea. So there's not just a repeat of scanning and pressing F all the time, because it gives the mission more variety and allows the mission to flow better overall in some instances. Better flow equals better mission and better reviews, and sometimes better tips as well. Puzzles are a great way to boost non-combat gameplay, but don't make it too complicated, or the puzzle will fail drastically because nobody will like it. A complicated puzzle equals too much effort for some people in some circumstances, so don't make it too vague or too complicated with $1 million options or something like that. Another way to improve gameplay is optional gameplay, such as optional interactable objects or NPC contacts and dialogue options. That'll improve the quality quite a bit, more than you would think actually, because it enables the player to have a choice of what to do and therefore improves the immersion of the actual mission. So overall in gameplay, immersion is pretty significant, I would say, because that would give the player more flow, better reviews on the story, and overall a better review for your mission, and some tips.
welcome to our review of Grazorak City. It's a mission with 847 plays, an average star rating of 3.19. It's the winner of Foundry Challenge number 2, and it is a spotlight mission currently, so a lot of recognition for this mission on the Stowe forums. I hope I don't have word issues again like I had the last 2 episodes ago or whatever. But anyway, here's what we have to say on story this week. You're heading for the city of Grazorak, where you must stop a crazed Tellarite from an evil plot. That's basically all we can say on this mission, because the sad thing is, the plot was kind of hard to follow throughout this mission. Already, there is a lot of dialogue in the mission. Most of it is optional, and it gets pretty wordy, so you find yourself trying to find the relevant information quite a bit through all this stuff that you're like, I don't know if I need this information, and that was a massive problem in the mission, because the way the author has this set up already, and this is great, we'll get into this in gameplay and technical, but it's very multi-pathed. But, of course, the Foundry isn't really a multipath tool, so a lot of workarounds were used for this. So you never really know where you're supposed to go next completely, or who you're supposed to talk to. So you're getting the story in maybe an order that isn't perfect for story delivering, I guess. So, and a lot of it's optional. There's a lot of optional stuff, which is great. But it sometimes makes you wonder, am I getting relevant information here? Because a lot of the time I found myself asking, am I going to need to remember this later on? Is this important for the story? And a lot of it wasn't. And so I found myself having the problem of, is this really optional? Is this going to be important for the story later on? And that kind of affects the overall plot. So I don't think this was the ideal way to tell a story, but I did like that there was a lot of optional ways to go through it. I think the author should definitely go back and try to make it an easier flow for your average player, because it definitely gets a little confusing with all the optional dialogues, characters to talk to, stuff like that. It makes it hard to kind of tell what is the primary story that is trying to be told through this. The characters were good, and it was awesome to see some of the unique aliens, because I mean, you have the Medusian or whatever. It's the alien from TOS that's in the tank. And, like, if you look at them, you go blind or whatever. I forget what they're called.
Yeah.
Something like Medusa or something like that. I think it is Medusian or whatever. But that was cool to see in there. There were other cool aliens, like plants and stuff. And so he really goes out on a limb to create non-humanoid aliens. And that was really cool to see.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And then me and Wee Wee have our favorite characters here. What were they, Wee Wee?
I think you should say that, Murph. It's your idea.
Bonus points for the 82 clones that were in this mission. The clone babes. They were awesome. Especially we found quite interest in the one that was hanging out in the shower. Anyway, and there was also Moo the Gorn or whatever.
Moo the Gorn.
Moo the Gorn.
Mallet the Breen. Some very inventive names.
Loved it.
I like that. I'm going to remember that, Moo the Gorn.
That
actually, guys, correct the next Gorn and call him Moo.
Yes.
That's an
very much.
Hit.
You know what? We're making a Foundry challenge. You submit it to us. There's no reward. We just want to see it. No deadline. Just do it and send it to us, because that was awesome. But the dialogue was all right. I found it to be well written, and it kept my interest for a good portion of the mission. But it was really wordy. And again, a lot of the optional stuff. You're reading a lot of the optional stuff, and you're like, is this worth reading? Or because it is a long mission if you try to read all of the optional stuff. And I don't think you're meant to read all the optional stuff, which gives a lot of replayability to this mission, which we'll get into in gameplay. But, so, about halfway, I found myself kind of starting to skip through it, because I was wondering, I don't think I need this. This isn't relevant. I've been here for quite a while now. So, Wee Wee, you found it really hard to even get into the dialogue of the mission. Tell us about your experience, because it was quite different from mine.
Well, actually, to start with, it actually started out well. A few nice pointers in like the overall missions. Like, expect this. This is what the mission's intended for. Very, very nice. I don't think we've seen that much detail on what the mission's intending for in previous missions. But the very first 2 people you speak to have like 1 million dialogue options and about 1 million words to say. I basically read 2 sentences and I was like, I'm not reading this. It's too much. And it was like that for the rest of the mission. So I just couldn't stand that much dialogue and that much option throughout the mission.
So there was too much.
So much of it.
There's too much optional dialogue off the bat to get you into it.
Yeah, it was reading a novel per character. You don't want a novel per mission. Reading a novel per character isn't the best idea in the world. So cutting down on dialogue is probably the best idea in this, because people will start skipping it and won't know your story and give you a low score because of it.
Yeah, and you just want to make it obvious. Maybe put like in parentheses primary or something like that to to say you're going to want to read this. The rest is optional, but this is going to be key to the overall story of the mission. There were some canon contradictions about the mission. A few, I found them minor, we found them huge, but two main things I'm going to bring up here was, it was mainly the Borg and Fakiri felt out of place in this mission. And on our score sheet, it does say, like, Borg breakdancers for, like, our lowest score or whatever, for, like, there's no canon usage or the Borg breakdancers. There are, like,
just a bit.
Yeah, there are Borg breakdancers in this, so that led Wee to give it, like, a low score, because it's like, Borg don't breakdance. Now...
Well, yeah, I mean... Quite frankly, to be honest, though, no matter what excuse you put up or whatever kind of thing you put up for a Borg, not necessarily liberated Borg, but a full-fledged Borg, have breakdancing or partying isn't. That's a terrible idea.
Unless Q's involved. Q answers anything, but Q was not involved.
Q, but he's kind of default. It's like, in order to make these Borg breakdancers, I'll just bring in Q.
Yeah, Q's the ultimate author excuse to break canon. It's just like, oh, Q's breaking it, whatever. It works. But yeah, that was a bit of a weird thing. Like, they were, I got the feeling they were liberated, but they were like full Borg, and it was weird to see at first. And I was like, do they want some of their implants removed? I mean, they can do that. Do they want to look like Seven? Because bonus. But anyway, and then you meet the Fakiri, and I always feel weird when the Fakiri talk, and they were talking here.
I mean, I think the Borg had some explanation for it, but the Fakiri didn't.
Yeah,
like, you show up to this room, there's a Fakiri here doing some kind of ceremony. Like, why are they here? It's like, go away.
I never got that feeling of the Fakiri do that type of stuff. And again, their canon's kind of loose, but they're
Klingon demons.
Weird.
Not partiers.
And they're fake. I know they're fake. From what we gathered in those series, or at least I took away, is that they're fake and somebody made them. I don't know what's going on here, but they're not. It's a fake. But anyway, there was some stuff. At times, the mission didn't feel like Star Trek. Like I'd start to get into this feeling like, is this real? What's going on here? It just felt out of place. Like, it didn't feel like it could be a Star Trek episode. And at times, other times, it was like, oh, awesome, this totally feels Star Trek. But other times, it kind of crossed the line where it was like, unbelievable. So that's something you'll want to look into there. There was some touchstoning on the Star Trek original series episode Assignment Earth. That was the season 2 finale, where it was like, do you remember this one more? I've only seen it once, but I remember it had the dude who was time traveling with the black cat, and it was. Do you remember anything more about this episode?
It was the guy Gary 7. That'll probably spring a few minds if you're thinking about it now.
Yeah, now I remember.
And it was also that one that involved the rocket that exploded like 100 kilometers above the Earth or something. It was just this whole plot with the Enterprise. Go see the episode, by the way. It's a original series, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, it was a good episode. I can't
remember much else about it, but because I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, I saw it probably a year ago, but that was the first time I saw it. So I'm not a huge TOS expert, but yeah, I've seen it. I remembered it.
I think the reference in this mission is the technology he used to actually get to Earth in the first place. That's the thing you kind of use to actually get to the city.
Yeah. Something like that, and then some of the technology has been inspired and stuff like that. No spelling and grammar issues. Story scored a 6.43. It is the 30th ranked in story, so there is a lot of room for improvement here. I think just mainly because it really gets hurt because the plot is a little hard to follow for a lot of players. It's nice to have a lot of the options, and it does come in quite a bit to the gameplay score it receives and stuff like that, but for overall storytelling, it's a little funky. Especially in the Foundry tool.
Thing is too much option.
Especially because the Foundry tool isn't really built for storytelling like that, like multipath and stuff like that, and it's trying to pull that off, but it's fighting with the limitations of the Foundry a bit there. But anyway, technical now. Maps were sweet. Just gonna start off with that. Loved them. He completely everybody goes to ESD all the time, so you get recognized. So you recognize anytime an author uses ESD for something else. Usually, in this mission though, he completely transforms ESD to at the point where I start to feel I wasn't on an ESD recreation. I wasn't in a Foundry map that was just being used for something else. I actually felt I was in Grazorak City. At times you could tell, oh, this is Earth Space Dock, like when you're in the old cafe. This is the old ESD, not the new one that most players are used to. This is the old one. But I think that kind of helps too, because it's the old one, so we're not used to seeing that one as much. But at times it was like, oh, this is completely new and stuff, because he managed to transform some of these rooms completely, and it was perfectly done. Transitions were quite good in this mission as well. There was a lot to do in each map. You are reading quite a bit, so I guess that's where kind of reading a lot comes into play here, and helping the transitions, because the transitions are few and far between. So you're not going to be sitting at loading screens all the time going, you'll hit one and you'll be like, alright, just sit there, and then you'll proceed onto a map with tons more to do. So it's really nice to see there.
I got the impression that transitions to this mission were kind of at the time this mission was made. I don't think NPC contact removal was available yet. So I get the impression that if that was available at the time, all of this would be one single instance.
Yeah, or pretty close.
Or at least 1 or 2. Whereas it's I think it's like 4 or 5 in this case. So there's kind of a final limitation in itself, but now it's possible. It just needs a bit of updating. I think that'll be pretty nice.
The author shows great knowledge of the Foundry across the board. He is a master of the Foundry, I consider now, after seeing some of his awesome technical tricks through creating the maps and dialogue branching and stuff like that. All across the board, I found this mission to be perfectly constructed. And going into that, art asset usage was great too, because he was able to create items and rooms and even aliens. My God, he uses art assets as aliens, and that was great to see.
He uses objects to create aliens.
That's great.
That is absolute creativity right there.
Yeah, moving into creativity, great. I mean, there were plants as aliens, the gem floating things as aliens, stuff like that. He was so creative in this mission. Not just aliens, but the rooms and stuff. That was great. And even through the story, he does some really creative things that are out of the box and stuff like that. And that's really great to see. You're going to be going wow throughout the whole mission playing through it, and it's great to see that there. However, user help was on the lower end. Now, I can see why the user help wasn't as great in this mission. That's the instructions for the mission. Because, again, the Foundry is a limited tool when you're trying to branch out. So in order to do this, he kind of had to make the instructions and what you're doing vague. So you'd have like one step on the far end of the map, but on your way there, there'd be a bunch to do along that path. But doing that, it was kind of vague. Like, you'd have to go to a waypoint on the far side of the map to continue the mission. But it was hard to navigate because, of course, when you build your own custom maps, it kind of gets hard to navigate through them. So that was becoming a problem. Do you have anything you want to add in there, Wee?
Well, basically keep it in mind when you're going through the mission. You'll find yourself wandering a lot of the time. A lot of the things are vague. It says go here, but it doesn't exactly say how. And there are multiple optional interactions throughout the mission, which I'll get into, to actually trigger the next event. So that kind of thing might catch you out, and you can easily get lost because of that. But try to keep in mind that you basically shouldn't get lost.
Yeah.
Helpful advice, that, isn't it?
Yeah, don't get lost. Good advice. And there were no Foundry limitations in this mission. Technical scored an 8.72, are 6th ranked in technical. So this is really great on that board. I mean, other than the instructions, there are not really many issues in this mission. So great technical work in this mission. And that's probably the one thing that blew me away in this. I loved it. And on to gameplay from Wee. The Game Master!
Well, first starters, there was no space gameplay or space combat. So, like any of the missions we reviewed in the past, without this, they were not included in the overall score sheet, so we'll leave them alone. You don't need to worry about them in this mission. There is plenty of ground, though, and as we previously just mentioned, but just to emphasize it, ground gameplay was fantastic. I mean, where to start? Plenty of optional interactable objects, some meaningful, some useless, essentially. Like going to a replicator to replicate some food.
I love that.
Snack you need.
I made pizza.
Why would you do that? But it gives this a sense of immersion for the players. Like, you're really here in Grazorak City ordering some foods from this random replicator which you don't even want to look at ever again. That kind of a thing. There's plenty of... That's kind of a similar sense of when going through optional NPC dialogue options throughout the mission as well. There were multiple character interactions. I'm not catching off humor. Makes this part bleed over into dialogue area a bit, as we covered earlier. So that kind of thing we've mostly said, but there are plenty of characters in this mission to actually go through as well. And as I've just mentioned, plenty of triggers used in this mission to help with the immersion, because it allows the player to do something before proceeding with the next part of the mission. And sometimes that include main objectives. And that actually bleeds over into a puzzle which was in the mission as well. And it involves in disabling 4 force field generators to disable a force field in front of a Tellarite, the Tellarite we mentioned earlier. Now, the basic points are listed in the initial dialogue, so it's easy to proceed if you put 2 and 2 together, which Murphy can't do since he's bad at math. But it does involve a lot of click this, and if it doesn't work, click again. if people don't read the dialogue properly, because there is so much dialogue in this mission. So you might get caught out of that. But overall, the puzzle was pretty simple, but kind of clicky if you get caught out a bit, if that makes any sense.
Hey, wee, screw you.
I'm telling you, dude, I'll get my revenge if I haven't been already.
He's still pissed off about last episode.
Not really, I'm feeling a lot better now because I've already gotten some. Ground combat was mediocre in this mission. I mean, a lot of it's more emphasizing ground gameplay. I mean, the combat was entirely optional. This is one of the things I mentioned earlier, is that it's emphasized at the beginning of the mission, one of the points. The combat in this mission is entirely optional. And it's actually something, ironically, I didn't do personally. But what combat there is, though, according to Murphy, was pretty average, and there wasn't really a lot of it.
I only fought a Klingon.
You can see on your map, there's like a couple of Klingons going at it for honorable combat, which you can get involved in, which is actually what I didn't get involved in. And there are another couple of mobs in that mission as well, which I don't think we either has come across. It's either not possible there, or we just didn't. So, that kind of a thing. Pretty average, but completely optional. You don't have to do it. Now, the replayability of it kind of bleeds over into dialogue again. It's not quite enough for ending, but it's definitely multipath on the dialogue
side.
Tons of multipath. There's just the sheer amount of options the player has. It just feels like a million dialogue options to choose from. And whilst it's maybe overwhelming to the player, it does give a sense of replayability because of just the sheer amount of choices you have to make in this mission. It's actually amazing.
It's crazy. Alright, what's our gameplay score?
Overall, it scored an 8.95, which put it in first place for gameplay.
Yeah, so for what it offers, because that's what our gameplay score always looks at for what a mission's offering. For what it's offering, it's done perfectly in this mission. If you're somebody who's into combat, of course this isn't going to be your number one. But if you're just somebody who's going in, wanting to play something that's pretty much non-combat, even though there is a little bit of ground combat here, especially this is all ground, you're going to enjoy this mission. The non-combat, this is some of the best I've seen in Stowe, because it is quite good. I mean, a few more puzzles could have boosted this through the roof, and maybe an alternate ending, I think, would have really changed it. I think an alternate ending could have been pulled off, because we have seen it done in some workarounds. I think that would have been amazing to see, though. But overall, a great mission. So, what do we have to say overall?
Well, overall, this mission shows some fantastic, truly fantastic technical tricks and some brilliant maps with some magical non-combat gameplay. And if you're someone who enjoys all of that, this mission is definitely for you.
For you. It's for you, the player.
You.
So overall, it scored a 7.89, or 10th ranked Foundry mission. So hey, it hit the top 10 list. Excellent work on this one. This is a great one. And it's an old one, too. It's surprising to see these old ones still holding up against some of the newer stuff being created. So great work on this mission. It was definitely a fun one to play through. Don't know what we're reviewing next week. We're probably going to discuss that right after I hit the stop button. But hopefully it'll be something awesome. Brilliant. Amazing. And maybe we'll get some Foundry news, who knows. And another future Foundry discussion is in the works, so you have that to look forward to in episode 19. That's all I have to say. Do you have anything to add, Wee, before we get out?
Never do an ending like that again.
Wow.
You're terrible.
That's it. I'm done. I'm leaving. Goodbye.
But yeah, anyway, we'll have a few bits of news next week, hopefully. With him gone, this show's mine. Mine, I tell you!